Is there such a thing as Mr. and Miss Right? We often hear people asking or saying, I am searching for Mr. Right or Miss Right. We're going to be exploring that issue in this episode. The society and media carve this image for us girls of this knight in shining armor riding on his horse to come and rescue the damsel in distress. This strong, chiseled, broad shoulders gentleman.
Six pack. Sorry.
Six-pack individual who is looking to come and rescue us, sweep us off our feet. In fact, when I was in high school, we had the Harlequins and the Mills and Boons where we'd read about these guys who were so handsome, dashingly handsome. And it primed us to look for this perfect individual, the perfect boyfriend, husband, or spouse. Now, is there a Mr. Right? Is there a Miss Right? Is there a perfect individual? We want to explore this issue today in our podcast. Before, let us start with this little joke that I found. It tells the story of this high-end fashion boutique in New York that was selling husbands. And this store recently opened, and it publicized that each woman could visit the store, and they could only do so once. There were 6 floors, and the value of the products increased as the shopper went up the flights of stairs. The shopper could choose any item from any floor or choose to go to the next floor, but they could not go back down except to exit the building. So there was a single woman by the name of Cheryl who went to the store to find a husband. On the first floor, the sign on the door read, "These men have jobs." She was intrigued, but she continued to the second floor where the sign read, "These men have jobs and love kids." That's nice, she thought, but I want more. So she continued upward. The third floor sign read, "These men have jobs, love kids, and are extremely good looking." Wow, she exclaimed, but felt the urge to keep ascending. She went to the fourth floor where the sign read, "These men have jobs, love kids, are drop dead good looking, and help with housework." "Oh, mercy me," she burst out. "I can hardly stand it." Still, she went to the fifth floor where the sign read, "These men have jobs, love kids, are drop dead gorgeous, help with housework, and have a strong romantic streak." She was so tempted to stay, but she went to the sixth floor where the sign read, "You are visitor 31,456,012 to this floor. There are no men on this floor. This floor exists solely as proof that women are impossible to please. Thank you for shopping at the husband's store." Now, this is meant to be a joke, but oh, how it mirrors our quest to find that perfect husband, boyfriend, or spouse. Now, ladies, in our post-modern society, is there a Mr. or Miss Right? Or is there even a need for such an individual?
That's interesting, Michelle. And if that story you're told is real, then the answer is we really don't know what we would like. However, I don't think there's a Miss Right and a Mr. Right, because we live in an imperfect world. Nobody is perfect. So you're not going to get that perfect person. And what would you do with a perfect person anyway? Because we are all imperfect. I don't think it would work if we had a Mr. Right or a Miss Right. So that, is there a need? No, but as we go on, I'm sure we're going to discuss some other things that are important, which shows that we don't have to have a Mr. Right and a Miss Right. But I do think that there's somebody right for you out there.
Okay. In our postmodern world, there are many who believe that they do not want a single individual, whether it's a male or a female, because they are looking for an individual to satisfy different aspects of their lives. So they want one individual, for argument's sake, for women, one gentleman who would be able to provide the financial resources to pay the car note, to pay the rent for the apartment, one to provide the emotional support. That's the one that, you know, you have the little butterflies going in your stomach for. Then you have another one that you profile the town with. You know, this one is, you go to the parties and you are seen around town with this one. And it's likewise for the males. You know, they will have one female who is good in bed, another who is for the town and for partying, and another one who they can perhaps carry home to show mommy or whatever. You know, so they're not looking for the consummate, perfect individual. They are looking for several different individuals to provide, or to provide different, to serve different functions in their lives. What's your view on that?
I wouldn't say they're looking for different individuals. You posed a question earlier about the Mr. or Miss Right. So I think they're searching for that perfect person who can fulfill all of these needs and desires that they have, but they cannot find it in the one person that they're looking for. So they realize now that they have to, you know, go to 3 or 4 different individuals to fulfill all the needs that they would possibly need to fulfill.
Michelle, I'd like to add something to that. I think that's a selfish person. I think it's somebody who does not want to commit to one thing, because as Hope says, that they have a desire for these aspects of their, maybe their longing, their desires to be satisfied, but they are not prepared to find somebody who they can, deal with the total person. Mm-hmm. We all have good parts and bad parts of our life. And I'm sure that person who is doing that has some himself or herself. Mm-hmm. So it is that we have to be practical. And usually there is a lack of commitment that goes with that kind of, shall I say, behavior or that outlook. It's a lack of commitment because you can't commit to 4 or 5 different people. I don't think so. And I don't think a relationship could be really meaningful as it ought to be in that case. I don't know what the others think.
Well, this is, from what you're saying, Joan, I have to pose a question, because if I'm, as a female, have 5 different male companions, right? Am I actually looking right now for Mr. Right, or am I looking to have fun? Because why would someone who is looking for Mr. Right or Miss Right at this present time be with so many other people?
More to choose from. More to choose from.
Let me see if I can address that, Monique. I don't think they're looking to have fun. It's that level of fulfillment that they're searching for, I believe. But because they can't find, as Joan said, they're selfish, you're not going to find everything in one person. And so you have to look and see, what are you able to compromise, right? And so you're not going to find everything, but if you find one person that can meet you halfway, 3/4 way, you can say, all right, this is what I can live with. But being selfish, want everything. So you go to 5 different persons to find everything. Not that you want to have fun, but you want to feel that level of fulfillment, so to speak.
It could be both. There are many, I believe, who engage in multiple relationships are rarely out to just have fun. I don't think they are at the stage where they really want to settle down with one individual. I think they want to have their cake and eat it. So they want to have the fun, they want to party, they want to be satisfied in bed, they want to be able to, for somebody to provide the financial resources to, help them out in life. So they're not searching for a single individual. They're searching for different individuals to satisfy the different areas of their lives. And in fact, it is in fact selfish. Let me ask another question though. We read the joke of Cheryl earlier on. How many of us are like Cheryl? Certainly when we were growing up. What was your perfect, the perfect gentleman for you? What was the ideal when you were looking to have a boyfriend, or are you looking for your husband or whatever? Who was that perfect individual? What was the characteristics? What were the characteristics you were looking for in this individual? And for those who are not yet married, and you're looking for that perfect individual, what is it that you're looking for?
Okay, first let me tackle Cheryl at the For me, oh Lord, I was sitting and I was listening. I would have stopped because I would have this thing in the back of my mind. Suppose we reach a 6 and this happened to me, I would have had that. But there is some inkling inside. But what if you just go one more? But I believe I would have stopped, especially when you reached that way earlier.
Drop dead gorgeous.
But the fact that he helps with housework, romantic streak. When you reach this, so what more you really want? What else are you really looking for when you have all of this? He has a job. He has a job. I have ambition. Mm-hmm. He loves your kids, drop dead gorgeous, helps with the housework, and no, I would have stopped here at 5. Right. But for me now, thinking about what my boyfriend was in high school, and completely different. Let me tell you, it's a completely different outlook, because as you grow up, you realize that what you wanted back then is really not going to work out. And I should tell you right now that I'm a bit confused as to what you want in a guy, what you should be looking for, because at the same time you can find certain things, but then they lack a whole lot more that you want. So what do you do then? Throw away the man because you don't have the 1, 2, or 3. So to me, it's more confusing now. I will say, all right, you have to be God-fearing. That's number 1. What come after that? You must look good. Sometimes they look good. The people that look good are terrible. There are terrible people. They don't like cooking. They don't like to help you around the house. And
not supportive.
Exactly. So it's
all into themselves.
My thought now, what exactly do you look for?
I can understand the confusion, but I want to say that when you've reached this stage where you're looking for Mr. Right or Miss Right, you have to reach a certain level of maturity. Because if I tell you, I'm a very quiet person, and I grew up in the country, so that again, and in my time. But when I was going to a school all the way here in Clarendon from the West, there was a teacher that I thought he was just such a fine person, admirable, teenager crush on him. Man, I'm telling you, I just thought he was such, if there was anybody who was, a good person to like, that was this person. But you see, by the time I reached fifth form, I said to myself, but what did I see in him? Yeah. What is it that I see in him?
Yep.
So that you have to reach a stage of maturity. I understand, Monique, that the confusion that you have. But I think that you have to know yourself. You have to know yourself. You remember last week we talked about being very self-aware. Mm-hmm. You have to know what it is that you like. What is it that would make you happy? Do you see these qualities in somebody? And I think life is a series of trade-offs. Mm-hmm. So, I have the drop-dead handsome, and at the same time may have somebody who is caring, honest, with good character traits, who will make you happy. And I can tell you, I've seen and I've known many persons who didn't get the drop dead handsome, but are glad that they didn't have the drop dead handsome, because life is beautiful. As a matter of fact, you know that there's a song say, never make a pretty woman your wife. Well, never make a man handsome man your husband either, because he is up for grabs, so many people. So maybe you're not content. So I think a sense of maturity, you are young and you are coming, and so it tells me that you are not yet ready to make that kind of decision. So you are still enjoying friendships out there. And I think you are learning at the same time. And soon you'll come into your own and recognize what's important to you. And probably you won't have to go to floor 5.
And we have to understand too that this relationship and marriage, if we get to that stage, is a real life situation. So when we're young, in my era, it was a tall, dark, and handsome, you know. But in reality, you're going to be living together, and there are things that you have to do around the house. So if you're not in a position financially to employ help, it would mean that the responsibilities will have to be shared. Now, if you're going to take up somebody who is all into themselves, don't want to help, and some persons, and we have this mentality too, it is normally said by the female, what is mine, and what is yours is ours. But that should not be how it is. In reality, both of you are living life together, and so certain responsibilities have to be shared. And we look at what used to happen back then, where traditionally the men go out to work, the women stay home and take care of the kids and the home. That is not the case anymore. Based on what is happening economically in society, both the male and the female are out there working. And so it means how things used to happen, then the responsibility around the house will have to be shared. But there's this concept now that, you know, the women have to take on more, because they still have to go out there and work, and they still have the responsibility of taking care of the home and the family. So it's a real life situation. Though you want the tall, dark, and the handsome and the six-pack, you have to ensure that, you know, in some sense, they're able to meet you halfway.
All right, I've been quiet. I've only been listening. All right, I think I agree a lot with what Joan shared about self-awareness. So the question asked was, how many of us were like Cheryl growing up? Frankly, I think growing up, I was focused on the self-awareness part, because I remember learning in school that you must know yourself before you give yourself. So at the time, I think I had that presence of mind to be thinking to myself that, you know, I mean, you know, what am I going to do with that person? I mean, I was focused on learning about me, starting up my own issues. So chances are I probably would have gotten to room 6 back then. But even so, in my mind, I was also conscious of the fact that you need somebody who would be willing to invest the time to know you and to appreciate you. But before you can even have that in my mind, I think it is important first and foremost for me to know who is getting into that relationship, because unless you know who is getting into that relationship, you're going to quickly compromise who you are, and before you know it, you lose your identity. You don't know who you are anymore, and you know that person challenges you to give up so much, and then you might just end up regretting it. But as I grow, you learn, you realize certain things that are essential. First and foremost, God, believing in those things, sharing similar values, being compatible. And again, it comes back to being self-aware. Unless you know those things about yourself, you will just take anything that comes, because you don't know who you are. You don't know who is going into the relationship. But when you know who you are, you know exactly what you want. It is easier for you to identify it when it comes.
You recognize how much the physical comes up into what we laugh when we say that Monique, when she heard it drop dead, you know, and so on. But do you find that even persons who are more mature than her look at that physical and make it the be all, almost the be all and end all, and they will tolerate abuse because they have this handsome person that they can hang on the arm if it is a woman, or the man will tolerate whatever else should be there, not there, because he has a beautiful wife that he can take out, or a beautiful girlfriend. But when I'm talking about finding Miss Right and Mr. Right, we're talking about at an age where you say to yourself, I would like to have a stable relationship, which, the truth is that many people these days don't choose for that stable relationship to be marriage. But from where I sit, I think that is that's the ultimate, because I think it is in that setting that God saw that the family could be best maintained and sustained. Mm-hmm. And so its rightful place should be there where two people can share their life, their love, their hopes, their aspiration, and the children come up to see that. Can you imagine what that would mean for the other generation and the next generation? And I think we would have a better world. Mm-hmm. But in terms of physical, I can tell you that, listen, it is that you have to look beyond that, because you need to find people who you like money. That's what I would say, and to any young person, that you can be friends with. We talked about friends last time, that you can be friends with. And so you're beginning to see what is it in friends that make you tick, that you like, that you admire. And so there's a cliche that has always been used, but I think it is still valid. Learn to generalize before you specialize. So you must give your time to socialize with the opposite sex, get to know them, and you're knowing yourself. You see what you respond to, and then you gradually choose persons, and in this whole process of choice, you will find that you end up getting the person that God has for you. And never underestimate prayer. As a matter of marriage began where God created the perfect wife for the perfect man. But that's the only one. After that, we have to depend on him to help us now to find the right person. And I close by saying in this part, marriage is the most important decision that you will make in life. Mm-hmm. It is more important than the job that you'll have. It's more important than the college that you go. And I know you like your job. You speak about it so much. It's more important than that. It's more important than any other decision you take, because it is supposed to be a lifelong decision. So don't get carried away by confusion. Just tell yourself you're not ready yet. You're still looking. And you're making your notes mentally and otherwise. You'll come to the right decision in the right time.
And Joan, in relation to what you said about learn to generalize before you specialize, I don't know if society appreciate this thing, If you generalize, you are talking to different persons, and you might go on one or few dates. The person you go on a date with, they expect you to lock in, right? And if they see you going on more than one date, that girl, their body, the man, their body, because she have 3 or 4 men. Every minute me see she gone with somebody else. Do you think society really appreciates that, or it's forced? And that is why, too, we look at what is happening with relationships and marriage and so on. I'm thinking that society kind of corners us in terms of generalizing before we specialize, and so we end up making mistakes sometimes in terms of relationship.
I hear you challenge me on that one. But listen, if it is going to contribute to the most important decision that you are making in your life, should it matter more to you what people will say or what you are really doing and who you are? Because generalizing doesn't mean that you can go on group dates, you can form friendship groups with a lot of persons who are within your workplace, your church. Other than that, and you see how men behave. You see how men behave, like I'm speaking to a female, and for the man, you will see how ladies behave. And could that be that person for me? So not that person. I rule out that. And you listen to how some people talk to. You hear how they speak about women. You hear how women speak about men. They just want things from them. So you put those things in the back of your head. And it doesn't mean if somebody can't appreciate that it's just a date. It doesn't have any commitments to it. You go to the movies, you like going to the movies and you invited me, I'll come, but no strings attached. But I think we have come into a period where there are other expectations. You know, you must get sexually involved. You must get, or else that person is going to drop you. Let the person drop you, because it means that the person don't respect you for who you are and the standards. And so I don't think that person is the right person for you. Because just keep it at the back of your mind. Some of us who have had failed relationships, some of those things we allowed to play in our decision making. And especially when you are in church and so on, if you have somebody see you going out with one person, then that didn't, and then they look and say, boy, she's messing around. But you're keeping your standards, you know what you're looking for, and you know where God is guiding you. It is the most important decision that you will make in your life. They're the same ones who will criticize if you did get married to one of those persons and it didn't work out. So, listen, do the right thing. Do the right thing. And in the long run, you're going to be happy. God will be pleased, and your family will testify to the fact that you made the right decisions.
Is there a right time, a right age that we should start looking for Mr. Right?
Well, where that is concerned, at the right time, a right age. We spoke earlier about the importance of self-awareness. And we know that self-awareness and maturity comes with time. We know that people develop in stages, different stages of their life and everything. So as it relates to time, though, or age, I think it depends on maturity and how aware you are of yourself as a person. What is it that you need? Because Miss Joan said earlier, too, that, the partner who you choose, that is one of the major decisions that you will ever make in your life. As a 15-year-old going through hormonal changes, so much is happening in terms of identity versus role confusion. Who am I? What is my purpose here? You're trying to figure that out. And at the same time, to be entertaining another individual, I think that's a bit much. So I think it is important. I can't pin a particular time or say, okay, when you're 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, because everybody is different. Everybody matures at different level. And especially too, if a person has support, positive role models around them, then to guide them, that helps, in terms of speeding the process along. But what if you do not have that support or that kind of guidance? Then it boils down to how aware you are of yourself, who you are as a person, your values, your principles, your morals, which direction you want your life to go in, and then again, it becomes easier for you to identify that person or to know exactly what it is that you're looking for.
As you say that, you said that there's not a particular age that you can pinpoint to say this is the correct age, but I'm thinking that there's a particular age that we can say that is not the correct age to start.
Yes, definitely,
Because,
definitely.
When we are 13, 14, 15, as you indicated, we really don't know who we are. We're still changing. I remember when I was a teenager. That was not too long ago, I must say. I thought I was so in love with this particular guy. There was this particular song that used to play on the radio, I Miss You Like Crazy. And every time I hear that song, ooh, butterflies going off in my stomach, right? But then as I matured, and at this age and stage in my life, when I look back, I was like, really? Really? What exactly, no offense, but, I'm a totally different individual now. I remember when I was in college, I was so attracted to this guy who was in another department, and a friend of mine who were in the same program together. It was her friend. And I was, I kept on saying to my friend, introduce me to the guy. And I was very quiet, but I was always, just admiring the guy because he was so quiet, so handsome and everything. And I finally met him, and we started talking. I don't know if I liked him for more than a month. And this was somebody that I would just sit down whole day and just watch him go by and just anticipating talking to him. But I mean, our emotions are just so fleeting. And when you think that you are so in love, again, I was watching a podcast, Clive sent it to me the other day, of this young girl. She's now 19 years old. At 14 years old, she thought she was so in love with this guy, to the point that they eventually ended up, becoming intimate and having sex. She became pregnant at 14 years old. And shortly after, when she discovered that she was pregnant, whatever, all of them emotions that she had for the guy and the love she said she had for the guy, all of that went through the door. She was now pregnant at 14, and the guy who she was madly in love with, she's no longer in love with him. Right? So young people at 14, 15, don't be too quick and anxious to go have sex with the person who you think you are so madly in love with. Right? You're going to have several more of those guys to go through before you really find who you are. You really discover who you are, what you are looking for, what are the qualities that are important to you as you grow older. So don't be too quick to go engage in no sexual activity. Later on, you're going to have a lot of regrets when it comes on to that. You're going to think back, but this is the person that made me go give up my virginity to. Right? And you probably, when you look upon them on the street, you're going to want to run the other side when you see them coming. You don't want to have any sort of association with them, because we're really still discovering who we are at that age.
Michelle, I think that there might be persons who are listening who are that much in love with somebody and think the world will end if it doesn't happen. But you're here and you are madly in love. That's right. Not once.
Exactly.
Twice I heard. And who knows how many other times. And if we are all here to confess, how many other times. Yeah. So the fact is that you do get over it, and you are the better for it when you get over it, because with maturity and self-awareness. And remember that the whole theme of what we're doing is becoming you. If you decide and you know where you want to go, how you want your life to be, to develop your full potential as God would have you develop, then you recognize that there are some things which will have to wait. Some things are now, some things will be later, and some things will be much later. But then when it is much later, it's very good. Socially, in our culture, I don't think we understand. I think part of what is affecting our young people today, and you, Monique, it is that so in Jamaica, there are so many broken families that our children do not see that marriage works. And there's a lot of cynicism about marriage and stable unions and stable relationships, so that a lot of our young people will not even talk marriage. They want casual relationships, lack of commitment. But the truth about it is that you have to be all in order to enjoy this thing. You can't go 1 foot in and then think you're going to enjoy a relationship. Relationships about giving your all. It's based on friendship and love. And if you want to know what love is, go back and look at the Bible. It's the basic. It says love is kind, love is forgiving, love keeps no scores of wrong, does not envy, does not boast. In other words, these are the qualities that you look for. These are things that are lasting. Trust me. They drop dead handsome. There could be an accident, God forbid, and something is gone. I have known young couples where either the male or the female becomes unable to carry out normal functions and the all-important functions of intimacy over periods of time. What do? Split and run? Love is not like that. And what we want to talk about and we want to encourage in our young people, that the thing that will make it last is this friendship and this love. People fail. People do things that are not you want them to do, but love keeps you together, keeps forgiving. In other societies, for example, especially Indians from Asia and some of these other cultures, they are socialized that somebody can still choose the wife or the husband. And because of how they are socialized, many of them work. But many do not work. But sometimes they are not well known as we talk here. And sometimes also you find that when they migrate to other countries, like Western countries, they shy away from the way they were socialized in these kinds of relationships. But it is a serious matter, and maybe you'll have to have another part where you really discuss some of the characteristics that people should look for as they think of having, or moving towards having that all-important relationship that we would like to last a lifetime.
Right. So I want to add a little bit to that, Michelle. And I have a concern, or young people at times, they get locked in so fast. We talk about friendship and enjoying friendship. I remember going to a seminar, and the same question was posed: at what age do we think we should be looking for Miss Right or Mr. Right? And the presenter was saying, during your college or university years, during that socialization period, Millie spoke about self-awareness and finding who you are, and just basically what you're looking for in a partner of the opposite sex. At that time, during your college life, your university life, you're still finding yourself, you're getting to know other people, and you're also getting to know some of the qualities that you're looking for into the opposite sex. But the challenge I'm having, I don't know why young people feel as if they have to be locked in. You see somebody you like, and you just feel compelled that you need to go into a relationship right away. Joan spoke about friendship. At that stage, it is important, to explore, get to know people. You have different social groups, church, school, and clubs, and so on. Get to know people, put yourself out there so you can get to understand some of the things that makes up the female or the male, right? And then will know, come to a conclusion, as you've tried to find yourself, what it is you're looking for.
Yeah. Joan spoke about marriage and where, some of the dysfunctions, the dysfunctional homes that some of the children come from. And the statistics show that, marriages are failing, and perhaps failing significantly, even within the church. Is there really a need for marriage in light of this? It's a real question. Some of our millennials and later generations think that they're going to forego being married. Why should they be bothered with this commitment, this baggage and all of this? Why should I get married? I just live in a civil union. Is there really a need for marriage? Is there still a need for marriage?
I think it is quite unfortunate that our youths, they lack role models. To a great extent, the family has been, degraded by, persons having not gone through the process that we've discussed, the process of becoming self-aware, becoming mature. People skip those processes, and they just look at a person and probably want the chiseled chest and the looks and the money and the wrong reasons. And because of that, we see relationships failing. Joan spoke earlier about persons being in relationships where they're being abused, battered, but all for appearances they stay. And more times than not, when kids are involved in that relationship, that's what they see. And love is something, in my opinion, that is learned. We learn how to love based on what we see happening around us, because it is so significant, the impressions that are made on a child's mind based on what they see growing up. So I grew up in a home where I see mommy and daddy hugging every morning. They get up, they hugging, they talking, they read the paper together, they go on walks, we have family dinner. So when I grew up now and I'm looking for my ideal partner, it can be researched because it affects my unconscious mind. I am going to more than likely expect my husband to do those things. I'm going to expect to have dinner with him. I'm going to expect to read the paper with him, because that is what I see. On the contrary, if I see my parents fighting all the time, getting lick and kick and arguments, and I've witnessed it too with persons. I've witnessed it personally with couples where, I know the background and everything. And I think that's something that is very important, choosing a partner. It's important to get to know the family background, because the way they see their parents interacting, love is learned. The way we love, we learn it. So if they grew up in a home where they see persons always fighting, cursing, that's what they continue into the relationship. I'm going to answer the question, is marriage important? Marriage is very much important, and that is why it gets so much fight. I don't think the devil likes or approves of anything that God stands for. Right. And marriage is a powerful institution. It is the backbone of society. Without families, where would all of us be? All of us are here as a result or as a consequence of a man and a woman coming together, and that is how we're formed, and God created it that way. So, I mean, so yes, it is very much important, very, very much important. And I go again based on how I started. It is really unfortunate that kids lack that role model. We've drifted so far from the Bible and from the truth. And until we get back to the truth, I mean, marriage, it's just really sad that, I mean, it is being lost. The value of it is being lost. But that does not change the fact that it is important.
And I think too, if I just to add what Millie is saying, that is why in terms of society and what is happening in society with the many conflicts and the crime that is happening in our society today, it's connected to the whole breakdown in marriage and the family, in terms of that grooming and socialization within the home and that upbringing that is lacking. And in terms of marriage, the value of marriage has deteriorated so much. The emphasis is now on the big day, the bashy day, but many persons are not in it for the long haul. They don't understand what marriage is all about. It is more than just dressing up and going out there in the limousine and taking pictures, and after a month or two, it is more than that. So it is a value. The value that we place on marriage. You spoke earlier about persons. There are some persons who really value marriage and they want to do everything that they can to keep their marriage and let it work for their children. We have some homes. Persons are just there for the sake of their children. They're enduring whatever is happening in the home, the beating, the cussing, all of that, just to ensure that they try to keep the family together for the child or the children's sake. So sometimes it's not about all the material things while they stay, but they have a responsibility to their children to ensure that they too understand the importance of family. And so for the most part, especially females, it happens to males sometimes, but females normally suffer just to hold the family together,
But can I ask, I hear you both making reference to growing up children in a stable environment. Can't we do that without the ceremony?
Michelle, I'm itching to say that there's a difference between wedding and marriage. Mm-hmm. Wedding is all the fanfare that you want to put in there, but that's not the marriage. Mm-hmm. It's when you go to the church and the marriage officer declares you husband and wife, or some people who go to other civil authorities who are thus empowered to make that decision. Because I have known of people who have gone themselves, the couple, and witnesses, that's a marriage. But we tend to put the least important as the most important. It's the fanfare. It is the dress, the $1 million that you have to spend. And then afterwards, the life. There is no life, We talk about the breakdown. It's not only that the breakdown in society is affecting marriages and where people are so cynical about marriages. It has to do with a wide-ranging number of scenarios. We talk about finding the right partner, because that's what you started about. Okay, so you have persons who, and especially that the statistics show that the females are accessing more professional qualifications and are holding jobs that they are more economically independent. Okay, we find out that unfortunately the men are not as well represented at tertiary level and so on. So you come out, you have your PhD, and you are young. They are so young these days coming out with their PhD. Who are you going to find as the partner? Yes, educational attainment has an effect where marriage is concerned and compatibility. Because you are not going to marry to somebody who you can't have a sensible conversation with. So that also is contributing to it. You have also the abuse that we see in society. When you marry to somebody who cannot appreciate your accomplishments and appreciate your exposure and so on, and you say you marry because you want to have a child and you want to grow up that child, it doesn't work because it's going to lead to abuse. Because it's natural for the man to be the man in the family, you know, and you want your husband to be seen as a man in the family. But then you don't want a situation where you have to take over. Sends the wrong message anyway. So that there are a number of other things that happen in the society that are also putting a negative spin on marriage. So I can have a child. I can even go to the sperm bank and I can have a surrogate mother if I don't want to change my figure. And I can have a child. And I believe that I alone can raise that child. But I have to say very hastily, very quickly, it is that a female cannot teach a boy how to become a man. There are going to be disadvantages. You cannot beat what God made from the beginning. He says, wherefore shall a man leave father and mother, and both of them shall they become one. They cleave to each other. And it is in that perfect setting that God wanted for us to raise our children, so that fearing God, one man, one woman, and I'm not postmodern, excuse me, one man, one woman. And in that setting, with the fear of God and with the principles that he laid down, that's what marriage is supposed to be. There are going to be hard times because you're coming from different backgrounds. It takes time. And many people who have happy marriages, they didn't start out that way because there's a period of adjustment. There's a period of compromise. There are lots of things that take place, but it can be a beautiful thing. It is how mature we are when we get into it and we recognize that there's no perfect Mr. Right or no perfect Miss Right. We just have to work together. Love is a principle, and it can't be today and not tomorrow. It's not until fault we do find. It's until death do us part. That's what it should be.
Yeah. I like that point, and I'd like to take that point into the next question. What, therefore, are some of the qualities we should be looking for in a spouse? Boyfriend, girlfriend, wife, husband. What are some qualities that we should look for in this individual?
For me, I strongly advocate for self-love and self-respect. I believe everything starts with me, because what I cannot give what I do not have. And I think it is impossible for anybody to give you what they don't have. So if they don't love and respect themselves, how can they love you? How will they respect you? So the person must love and respect you. In a previous podcast that we did, Joan spoke to the importance of observing how the person treats other people. So it cannot be that the person is only going to be nice to you, but when they come into contact with other persons, they're going to treat them with scant regard, or disrespect them, or speak unkindly about them. So choosing a partner, you have to choose somebody who loves themselves. This is debatable for some persons, but for me, I believe in God. So I think it is also important for that person to believe in that supreme being as well, right? That person must also, or it is important for them to have a good family background, good relationship. The mind, how they think, how they think about people, how they treat people, how they relate to people. Do they support your goals and your dreams? Are they also pursuing dreams of their own? Right. So I think those are some important qualities to look for.
Okay. So when I first heard this topic, I went searching. I went to Google, my best friend, right? So I found a little article here, and it spoke basically on the things that you should look for when choosing Mr. Right or Miss Right. So it mentioned, think about whether he fits into your life rather than checking if you can fit into his life. And I found that to be something that was quite interesting, right? Because sometimes we look on ourselves and we say, I wonder if me, all right, are good enough for him. And we don't look at it and say, but you're supposed to be looking at self. Is he good enough for you? Right? So that is one point. Assess whether you share the same values, and that is very important. You must make sure that whatever you are interested in, he's also sharing those interests as well. I'm not going to read all of them. So, do you find him sexually attractive? It is important. You must look at those things. And also the last one I'll read is, think about what might change post-wedding and what changes you would be okay with. And that would be good, because changes will be made. And sometimes we say we can't change the man, right? And we're not supposed to try to change the person. But then they will have some attitude before you get married. And when the marriage leak, they're ready to settle down now. And all of what you did used to in the getting to know you phase gone through the roof. And it's a completely different person you're seeing now. So there are a lot of things that you should look for in men. I'm still learning them. I'm still looking for them. I have some time to go, you know?
I want to pick up on something you say, the changes. One of the things I would want to say when you're looking for a partner, whatever you see, say that is what you get. In other words, you must ask yourself the question, if that thing never changes, will I be able to live with it all my life? Because marriage is a lifetime decision. So that's the question that you should ask yourself. So yes, there are changes, and there may be changes. What you should look for is changes like he can't cook, or she can't do this, maybe technology, but she can learn. You understand? She can learn. These are things. But character change, don't bank on it. It can happen, but that's not something that you should factor that when we get married, it's going to be different. I want to suggest that there are some things that are good for partnerships. You must have someone that has empathy. You know, who can feel for you, feel with you, and be there with you. You want honesty. So if the person during the courtship, you find the person lying, what you doing with him?
Move on.
You know, you don't need that. Must be honesty, must be somebody of integrity.
Oh, yeah.
Not like, you said, tell them that I'm not here. And they see the car and they see everything. And you must go out there and lie for them. You know? Or whatever else that applies to the female, because it happens both ways. So you look for somebody with character traits that will make you feel proud of that person, and you can stand up for that person wherever. So don't get starry-eyed about, he's so sexually attractive. Maybe that's all there is to it. And maybe the female who is all of this kind of person, maybe not what you really want, and then you are disappointed. Look for those characteristics that last. And I want to tell you, please don't make a checklist. Don't sit down and write all the things he must be, and he must be mentally, physically, emotionally, and all this kind of thing. And if you do, go out to your nearest wholesale shop. You can buy a robot, and then you'll have that perfect Mr. Right. Look for persons that you can be comfortable with. You know, friends that you can be comfortable. You can laugh. You can laugh about silly things. You can be serious about things. You are just comfortable with that person. And you don't have to go out to be holding hands and huggy kissy everywhere. The natural joy that comes from having somebody that you're comfortable with will speak volumes that you are having a good relationship, a happy marriage. And I mean, you will blossom, your children will blossom. I'm telling you, that I think is a good marriage, and that I think those are some of the things we should aspire to see in our mate, so that we can have, the real richness of a good marriage.
Can I say? I agree with everything that was said earlier. But Joan said something about not making the checklist. But I believe, while you don't have a checklist, I believe that there are certain things that are just deal breakers for you.
That's right.
Right. And
Yes.
if there are certain things you definitely can't live with or cannot live without, and the person doesn't possess these qualities, then it's best to move on. Cut and run. That is not your Mr. or Miss Right.
Yes.
Right? So in addition to everything you all said, deal breakers. What is your deal breaker, right? And the red flags are staring us in the eyes most of the time, and sometimes we ignore them thinking that we can fix it. We can't fix anybody. We can't change them. They have to have a desire to change. So if we're going into it thinking that we can change persons, it won't work. It's up to you whether or not you can live with whatever you see.
All right, thank you, ladies, for your input. I just want to leave this discussion with a thought I found from a very famous writer speaking on the issue of having a happy or unhappy marriage. She wrote, "If those who are contemplating marriage would not have miserable, unhappy reflections after marriage, they must make it a subject of serious, earnest reflection now. This step taken unwisely is one of the most effective means of ruining the usefulness of young men and women. Life becomes a burden, a curse. No one can so effectually ruin a woman's happiness and usefulness and make life a heart-sickening burden as her own husband. And no one can do 1/100th part as much to chill the hopes and aspirations of a man, to paralyze his energies and ruin his influence and prospects as his own wife. It is from the marriage hour that many men and women date their success or failure in this life and their hopes of the future life." She goes on to say, "Make haste slowly." Few have correct views of the marriage relation. Many seem to think that it is attainment of perfect bliss. If they could know 1/4 of the heartaches of men and women that are bound by the marriage vow in chains that they cannot and dare not break, they would not be surprised that I trace these lines. Marriage is in a majority of cases is a most galling yoke. And that is why I would warn the young of a marriageable age to make haste slowly in the choice of a companion. There are some marriages or relationships that do not fit this bill, and they're very happy and they're very fulfilling, but they require work. If you are contemplating a relationship, a marriage even, think very carefully and pray, ask God for direction and guidance.
Nation.